But let me go ahead and turn the mics over.
Thanks. Popcorn. everywhere. Popcorn and margarita all
Can we
over
give
me.
her a cold Texas welcome, everybody? Hey, welcome to Houston. You started off, I mean, you've done so many big shows, Kill Bill, Glorious Bastards. You doubled Xena for 66 episodes. Is that what it is?
Oh my God, was it?
Something like that. So is that how you got started in the business, the first?
Yeah, actually my first ever job was on a TV pilot called, can you hear me? I always feel really self-conscious with it too close to my face. A pilot called Amazon High. That was, the production company was the same production company that did Hercules and Xena and all that stuff. And it was about a cheerleader that went back in time. Because she had pink glittery Converse shoes that when she took her back in time. I don't know why it never made it to series. She was a cheerleader and she would cheer, she cheered the bad guy to death. It literally, her killer blow was her being in splits. Yeah, like to his nuts. That was how he died. That was. Yeah, so that was my first job.
Nice. So what was the background? What got you started in stunts? Out of all the things to do, why did you choose a really tough profession, especially for women?
I don't know. I wish it was as straightforward as me being like, I choose this. It just didn't feel. I mean, I did gymnastics and I did martial arts after I got too old to keep doing gymnastics, which was when I was 15. I retired at 15. But you know, prior to that, I was walking on walls and climbing trees and jumping out of trees and jumping from tree to tree, and you know, I mean, that was sort of my nature. Basically, when I found out that you could be a stunt person, that career was actually a career, I was like, me, pick me. Pretty much like that.
So did you have anybody in the business, like a father, an uncle, like aunt, nobody, nothing like
No,
that?
my parents are both British. My dad's a doctor and my mum was a nurse. My dad played cricket for about 3 years, and I think my mum played cricket for about a year. That's the genetic pool of sporting prowess that I come from. I don't know what happened. I was a freak, or my mum banged the mailman or something.
Nice. So after all that, you came from New Zealand, right, to LA or New York, or where did you end up first?
LA, well, actually San Francisco. There's a documentary called Double Dare. That's a document. Oh, yeah, there you go. A documentary about stunt women, but in particular two, and I was one of them because I was Xena stunt double, and Jeannie Epple was Wonder Woman stunt double back in the day. So I stopped off. I was on my way to Canada because I figured they're Commonwealth. They have the Queen on their coin. We have the Queen on our coin. Maybe they'll, I don't know, give me a work permit or something. Give me a visa. I figured America would be too hard. And so on my way there, I stopped off in San Fran to hang out with Amanda McKaylee, who's the director of Double Dare, and with Jeannie, although she was in LA. And I don't know what happened. It was one of those, I happened to be in town when they were auditioning for Kill Bill, and they happened to be struggling to find, which is fucking mind-blowing to me. I feel like I can swear because you've just watched that movie. So I'd say forgive me, but at this point, there's no need. What was that? Fuck it, yeah. At this point, fuck it. But they were having trouble finding, I guess, to be honest, the girls that I now know should have got those jobs, doubling Uma and Daryl, were busy. They were on Charlie's Angels or whatever. Yes, thank God. And so I sort of ended up at the auditions for Kill Bill, and honest to God, I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell all my stunt mates that I auditioned for a Tarantino movie, and that basically meant that I would get free beers for life. It never occurred to me that I would get, like, the audition meant maybe getting a job, you know. And 2 weeks later I was in China instead of Canada. They do not have the Queen on their coin, by the way, in China.
So what was that like? I mean, you're just getting into the business, and all of a sudden you're doubling one of the biggest actresses. I mean, for a big show, big director, everything. What was that like?
It was all so big that it was a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around, really. I mean, I'd been, you know, I was one of the hardest working. Well, I mean, I did work pretty hard, but I mean, I was full-time employed as a stunt woman in New Zealand, which I was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 full-time employed females. So I was like, I was making my mark in New Zealand. I was working my ass off to be respected over there. So by the time I got here, I'd never worked on a feature film. I'd never worked outside of New Zealand. I'd never worked for Quentin Tarantino. You know what I mean? Like I'd worked for directors that people in New Zealand didn't even know the name of. Yeah. So the whole thing was just a bit like, wow, Ethan Hawke just came up to me and called me honey and kissed me on the cheek before he realised I was not Uma Thurman. That just happened. That's my reality right now, and I don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to drink Chinese beer.
Funny,
I don't love that.
tell us a funny story that happened to you on any show. Everybody's always every stunt person always has a funny. That was a funny one, but give us a really cool one that sticks out in your head.
Oh my God, Under Pressure. That's like 15 years of awesomeness. Thank you. Funny. Fuck, I don't know. Oh my God. Do you ever get that thing where you've got so many ideas trying to come through a small point that is, my mouth isn't that small, but like there's so much coming out at once it gets a bit stuck. One of my favourite memories is opposite Kevin Smith, who's a New Zealand actor who played the God of War, Ares. Are there any Xena fans out there? So the guy who played Ares is just the most charming, sweet, funny, like ruggedly New Zealand, sexy, hot man who was married with 6 kids and was like forever faithful, which PS is really sexy. What is that? Like a guy that's like loyal to his wife is sexy? That's just not fair. Like, what the fuck, dude? Come on. But he's also incredibly funny, but he plays the God of War, so he's this really stern, and I would often end up in a fight situation. I would be doing the fight, and if they talked in the middle of the fight, he would be doing his dialogue with me. And at this point, I was not an actor. Like, I thought actors were all fucked in the head and weird, self-centered and absorbed and, you know, weird artist types. So I'm sitting there, and he's like, I blah, blah, blah. And at one point, he was like, I will eat you with 6 snake heads. He was just like making shit up. And I was like, and I just started laughing, and we had to cut like 6 times because my shoulder, the camera shooting at my shoulder, my shoulder kept bouncing. And that motherfucker, he did everything in his power to keep me laughing. I think he was trying to get me fired.
So fast forward, we go all this way. We start from stunts in New Zealand all the way. How did you make the jump from like actor to producer and the path that you're going now? When did you decide, like, after hitting the ground 100 times, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore?
I'm too old for this shit. Yeah. No, honestly, I didn't. The decision sort of was placed in front of me, or smashed over my head, probably more accurately. And it was Quentin. He wrote Death Brief.
Right.
And I had no idea. He told me, he had me and Monica come over. Tell me if I've got a time frame, because I will just ramble. I'll take hours to answer. Okay. In that case, bring me my margarita. Where's my Clooney? Monica doubled Daryl Hannah in the Kill Bill movies. And Quentin invited us over one time because one of the trailer fight, you know, the Daryl over fight, got nominated for an MTV award. He was like, come over to my house and we'll get really drunk and we'll go on this big limo and red carpet. Okay, all right. And we were like, yeah. I'm sorry, did you say free? I'm in. Me, pick me. So we went over there, and he said, I'm coming up with this new movie. It's basically a movie about a stuntman who kills women with his car. And we were like, uh-huh. And what else? He's like, that's it. And we were like, oh. You might want to describe the images that are happening in your head, because I don't have any of those, and at this point that's boring. And then he started describing the images in his head, and I was like, oh my God, that's fucking amazing. And he was like, of course you guys, I want you guys to be in it. Which I took to mean there would be a scene. Have you guys seen Death Proof? You can. So the scene where we're on the breakfast, sitting around the table, the Reservoir Dogs shot. In my head, there was always going to be one of those shots, but I imagined that I would be at the bar. P.S. Did you know that Stuntman Mike is sitting behind us all in that scene? No. Keep an eye out. You'll see his icy hot jacket in the background. But I imagined it would be me and Monica in the background in a bar, and you know the lead girls would be talking, and I'd be like, "Fuck you! I'm from New Zealand, not Australia." And she'd be like, "Yeah, Australia." And we'd get in a fight in the background. That's what I thought would be. So when he rang me and was like, Zoe, I finished my script. Okay, I want you to read it. All right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm coming over now. I was like, well, what? Something fishy. And he came over and handed me the script, and that was when life said, P.S. you're going to start acting now. Here's 40 pages of dialogue. Go. What? Yeah.
Very
He convinced me by telling me about the chase sequence, P.S. I was like, I'm flattered, but I don't know, and I don't want to be the girl who fucks up a Tarantino movie, and I've never done this shit before, and I don't know. And he was like, let's go get beers. And I was like, beers? Bitch, I need some Jaeger. Like, what? So he took me out for beers, which was probably wiser. And then described the chase sequence to me. And that was when I was like,
You'll be strapped to the hood of a car.
yeah, done. No, actually it started with chase sequence, starts off, you're happy, you climb out the window, and I was like, what? He's like, onto the roof, and I was like, get out. He's like, and then on the bonnet, I was like, I'm in. And then he introduced Stuntman Mike, and I was like, yeah, no, I will do dialogue just to do this chase sequence. I told you, I can take hours to answer a yes-no question. Do you like the color blue? Well.
Okay, so let's open it up to some questions. Anybody out there? Any questions up
Stick
there?
to yes-nos, otherwise we'll be here all night.
Go ahead.
What was your most difficult challenge in the industry to date?
Oh,
Yes.
Jesus.
I want you to be here longer.
Yes. Next. Okay. To be honest, well, it's the most present, therefore I'm most aware of it, but transitioning from stunt girl to actor has been really, really challenging. It's kind of like a two-sided story, which I realize is all the same side eventually. Because I get pretty deep and profound like that when I need to. Basically, I was like, fuck, no one will take me seriously as an actor. They just think I'm a stunt girl who does her own dialogue, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that I walked into a room being like, hi, I'm Zoe. I think I'm an actor. Yeah, I can talk. I remember lines. You should cast me in this movie. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. And I walked out and I was like, oh, this transition is the hard part. And it was because fundamentally, this is the other thing, after doing all the press for this movie, I've come up with some really good answers because I've been thinking about this shit a lot. But basically, the role that I play on set as a stunt double is a jock, is an athlete, is invincible, is not vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. As a stunt girl, doubling or not, but you would never see me cry. Ever. One time I cried on set. It was on the set of Catwoman. Which makes it so much more painful that I cried. Still to this day, make me cry out. You never saw me cry. You would never see me lose my temper. You knew when I was pissed, but you would never see me lose my temper. You would never see me feminine, sexual, never anything that would confide that I had any vulnerability at all existed. And then suddenly you're an actor. They're like, P.S. what we need from you right now is vulnerability on all counts. Just be emotionally available to everybody, strangers. I was like, can you just throw me off a building, please? Just give me a locomotive to jump off of. This is making me really uncomfortable. So it was kind of a transitioning from being athlete, jock, tomboy to creative artist, emotionally available was really fucking scary. But I realized since this movie was pivotal for me, this was as the producer, I owed it to every single person on my crew and in my cast. And to be honest, this is where I start sounding like an actor, finally. Out of respect for Sabrina, the character, she's fucking badass, man. It would be disrespectful to half-ass it, So I had to all the girls did months and months of training, fighting and getting fit and losing weight and doing choreography, and I worked with them all on all of that stuff. But I was like, here's your choreography. I'm gonna go over here and practice crying. That was my job so I just prepared the shit out of it. But that was for me. Now I walk into a room and I'm like, P.S. I'm pretty sure I can act now, and I really like doing it, so what are we going to do? Instead of being like, I'm really sorry, do you mind, could you possibly cast me in, you know. So that has been the biggest challenge, and it's taken me like 4 or 5 years to get to the place of like, people like, you should be in this movie, and I'm like, not really. Now I'm like, fuck yeah, Wonder Woman, bring it, bitch, come on.
Another question? Somebody else got a question? Yes, ma'am.
Make it a yes, no.
First of all, great movie.
Thanks.
And future projects.
Wonder Woman? No, I'm kidding.
We wish.
I know, me too. Wouldn't that be rad? Right? We had this whole joke. We went out for dinner at a Mexican place beforehand. Again, with the yes nos, I'm not very good at it. And we were talking about a Wonder Woman character that I might just make my own short. But Wonder Woman's on a therapy couch. And then you cut to her being outside in the car park and she can't find her invisible chair. Bleep, bleep. Bleep, bleep. Bleep, bleep. It's invisible, right? What are you going to do? Upcoming projects. I have 2 that I'm in the process of developing, which since having done Raise, which I sat here and watched it, and there's just like every couple of minutes I'm like, fuck, that's a decision we definitely made, and then that's a decision we didn't make, and then next time I do it. But yeah, we did it once and it was really hard. It's hard work making a movie, man. It's hard work. That's why I'm so grateful to have it in a theater like this and have a crowd. It's like, it's a big deal, you know. But once you've done it once, I can't decide if I'm more confident about doing it a second time or more terrified, because now I'm like, I know exactly what I don't know. Before I was like, we'll make a movie. How hard can it be? Now I know it's hard. But I have a movie and a TV show that I want to make that sort of would end up being, well, whatever. I'm suddenly aware of like people recording. I'm like, TV show, action, comedy, me, movie, action, not comedy.
Romance?
Wouldn't that be good? That's what I'm saying. Now you understand why when I watched the romance movies leading up to this, where I was like, oh my god, I'd love to just like cry and be in love and make out. Instead of cry and be like bleeding from the heart and kill people.
All right, we got
Comedy, that's what I want. I
one
want
more
a comedy.
question before we go. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't want to pick that pressure. I'm sorry, if I'd been shorter on answers, you'd all get to ask me.
Yes, sir.
Oh. Yes, and then her. Can she go after too?
Change from the actual set production to the final project that you saw?
Funny you should say that. I was literally sitting there going, I need to read the script. Because we really didn't do it by the book. I mean, we started off with a short. We had a short film that the credits for the short should have rolled right at the end of the first fight with Sabrina and Jamie. Like, you know, when it goes, Sabrina, don't even think about it, and Sabrina closes her eyes and Raise comes up, that was the end of the short. So we shot that, and then halfway through that, we had a bunch of people being like, oh, so when's the release date? We were like, well, a release date requires a movie, and a movie requires a feature-length script, and we don't have any of those things. We should get on that, and so over Christmas, we wrote the script. Wait, what was your question again? Look at me. This is
How much did it change between the actual?
massively, obviously. I'm like, it was about this long, it became that long. The first edit, which was sort of like just the put together, was 3 hours long. Yeah. Yeah, depressing. Like an hour and a half of like bang, 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 die, blood, guts, a little bit of funny. Great. 3 hours, you're like, I want to kill myself. Clooney's aren't even gonna get close. But it changed a lot. We kind of did a whole where the edit was completely, it was a little bit more sort of almost Reservoir Dogs-y, where it was all sort of like jigsaw, mixed up, confused. And then as we went through the cuts, we kind of got it back to the original pacing of it. But there's lots, I mean, I was sitting in there just now going, all these things I'm now remembering like the 900th time I've watched it. Like the little monologue part where Sabrina's, I wrote that. I totally forgot I wrote it until today. I've watched it like 1,900 times. I'm like, that's me crying, that's emotional. And then today I was like, fuck, I wrote that. I remember writing that. I remember thinking about my mum and writing it. Anyway, again with the yes, no's, I'm sorry. It changed a lot. From script, shooting, it changed a lot. And then in the editing room, they're not lying when they say you make 3 different movies. The one you write, the one you shoot, and the one you cut.
Okay. One more.
But
Who else had?
oh, yes.
Hi. What influenced the fighting styles that the girls had, and also, as being a producer and an actor, did you find that changed how you did your fighting at all?
I feel like this mic is so sensitive, you can hear my pulse. I can hear it going. Like, that's creepy. It's fitting.
130 over 80.
Fighting styles and
Fighting style, yeah, I was thinking the producer thing. Fighting styles, fundamentally for us, it was kind of experimental, at least for me. I can only talk on behalf of me. It was experimental that I wanted to do fights and shoot fights and create fights that I hadn't performed or seen before, which was a female on female fight that was for real. In saying that, we wanted to avoid the stereotypical women in prison fight movie, not because it's bad. I mean, I'm more for like bitches in underwear fighting each other, showering and pillow fighting and stuff. Why not? You know, but we were like, we're going to avoid all of that, and we're already got women in prison, so we had to cut. We're like, no undies. I was like, motherfuckers, you better be giving us pants because I want to put knee pads on all of our actresses. I'm just saying, make it so they don't have to be careful and they will get down and dirty. That's true. I mean, the only one with a stunt double in that whole movie is Rachel in that first fight. Everyone else is doing all their own shit, which is fucking impressive. I mean, we had stunt girls that trained and choreographed and like, but fundamentally, the styles of the fights came down to the other thing we wanted to avoid was to have it be like tournament style, like Street Fighter. We didn't want like nunchuck versus stuff, you know, like karate versus wushu. It was like and we had no weaponry. It was all bare hands, so it came really basically down to the girls discovering their character and creating their character, and then from there, me and James Young, who's the fight choreographer, getting in there and being like, how would this character fight? Because you can't have them all fight the same. There are people that are like, the fights are boring, they're all the same. I'm like, all right, well, totally disagree, but I get it. But our point was to make them as different as possible, but realistically so. So when like Cody, you know, her little fight stance where she's like, on no movie set that I have ever worked on in my life would anyone ever let an actress fight with her elbows out, ever, like, ever. But it was like, that's how Cody fights. That's Cody's life. Her life has taught her to fend for herself as this person. And so that, we really had it that the characters led themselves into the choreography. And that's where I came in a lot, because I was like, look, I'm a girl. I've spent my life kicking ass. I can tell you right now, she would not fight like that. Like, there's no way that she's going to shoulder barge someone. She's just not going to. That motherfucker will. You know, like Phoebe. I was like, she just wants to rip hair out and, like, pull jugulars out. That's her, like, you know. So that was that. And then just to touch on the last question you had, part of me was like, oh, I don't really know how that makes sense. And then I was like, actually, it did for me, being the producer, and therefore being the person who was asking everyone to give everything they had, gave me permission to give everything I had without feeling self-conscious or arrogant or a dick or like a show-off. Being a show-off is like, ironically, because I clearly am. I'm like, but I was born like loud and liking to entertain. I can't help myself. But like when someone calls me a show-off, it cripples me. I'm like, oh. So acting clearly was one of the things where I was like, oh my God, that means I'm an attention seeker. And then on this movie, it was like, because I was a producer and I was asking that of everybody else, I was allowed to step up to the plate fully and just be like, this is all I have, and not be judged about it. And it was, you know, so for me, for that, the fighting stuff it was the first time that I really found my character in the fighting. The first fight with Jamie, when she was standing opposite me, when Rachel Nichols, carry the S, when Rachel was standing opposite me and just like bleeding and snotting and crying, when she wasn't on camera, she was still giving me that, you know, it's like that. And in that moment, I was like, oh, Sabrina is this person. She's the person that can look at this woman who's bleeding and crying and still go switch into a kill mode for a daughter that she has, you know. It was like, sorry, now I'm ranting about this whole acting thing, because it's actually, once you get past the fact that actors are all like self-centered fuckwits, it's really fascinating being somebody else. It's so cool. Because I would never do that unless you really pissed me off.
Hey guys, we're going to go ahead and continue this in Death Proof across the hall. We've delayed the start of Death Proof for a little bit, but you guys do need to go and head over
Sorry.
there.